Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and today I'm going to be telling you about the first 4 books I have read this year. Specifically these 3 plus an audiobook, which let's get that one out of the way first so I don't forget it. And that was On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. That's the same author who wrote The Hate You Give, which is more well known I think, and made a big splash in booktube and everywhere a while ago, and now they're making a movie I think, and I haven't read that one, but I really liked On the Come Up. I didn't really expect to. I heard about it on a couple of different booktubers channels. I will search them up and link them below, but one of them was Noria Reads. But I've been wanting to read more diversely, and this seemed like a good option. Not anything particularly about what it was described as, but just that it was recommended so highly by these several booktubers made me think it was worth trying, even though it was a little bit outside my comfort zone and my usual thing, because it is contemporary, and even for contemporaries this one is more up to the minute than most contemporaries that I actually read. Like, there were a lot of references to modern pop culture, like really modern, like Wakanda. If y'all don't know, I'm a huge Marvel fan. I like a couple of DC things, basically just Wonder Woman, but I really love a lot of Marvel stuff, and I loved Black Panther the movie. It was beautiful. The Dora Milaje, or however you say that, are my favorite people, and glorious. Anyway, the main character of this book is also a big Marvel fan and particularly enjoyed Black Panther, and there are several discussions between her and her best friends about Black Panther and a couple of other Marvel movies. And I really enjoyed that, but like I said, I don't usually read contemporary novels, especially ones that are totally completely set in the real world. I'm a huge fantasy person. But I wanted to try this and learn about some different perspectives and different types of literature. And On the Come Up specifically is about a 16-year-old girl who lives in a bad neighborhood. I have forgotten which city, but anyway, there are many neighborhoods in the city, and she goes to a school that is in a better neighborhood because her mom doesn't want her to go to the local school because it's really bad and there are cops there and it's just not a good place to be. So she buses into this other school with a bunch of other diverse kids because they're part of a program to diversify this better school, and she's got a couple of best friends who are usually on the bus with her, and they chat on the bus and then they chat all day long. But the most interesting part of her life is that she is trying to become a rapper, a big star rapper specifically, but she starts out as a little rapper, a little time rapper. She raps to herself and her family and her friends, but she wants to make it big, so she gets into a little rapping competition type thing that's local. They go to this club and a couple of rappers will duel each other, and one raps than the other one, and then people judge which one won. And so the whole story is about how the main character Bree navigates trying to become a rapper while also balancing school and other parts of life, because beyond being in a bad neighborhood, her father was killed because of gang violence back when she was really young. So her mother is a single mother and is trying to take care of Bree and her brother on a single income, although the brother is now old enough. He also has a minimum wage job, but even that's not enough sometimes. So it was interesting to read about this type of poverty, which I personally have not experienced, but which I have just heard about, where sometimes there's not enough money for food, sometimes there's not enough money for electricity, sometimes there's not enough money for rent, and trying to juggle all that while also trying to get good grades at school and do something artistic. It's a lot. And then this main character also has an aunt who is part of a gang, and trying to figure out how to relate to her without being all into gang business when her aunt is the one who is most supportive of her whole rapping thing. Our main character's got a lot to handle, and personally I don't relate to the main character besides her being very different from me situation wise and background wise. You got the whole teenager I want to be a famous singer or rapper or performer thing, which I never got because I was autistic and I don't like people, and the whole arguing with your mom about whether that's more important than grades or not thing. I was always a prioritizer of grades, but that's relates back to my social anxiety and being not wanting to disappoint my teachers. But despite not having things in common with her / relatability, I really liked reading about her, and I really liked reading about her perspectives. I liked reading about her life and seeing things through her eyes. And I really enjoyed, there's quite a bit of drama with her friends, as is prone to happen to teenagers, and I actually really appreciate a lot of ways she's handled that. And despite not having other things in common, her stubbornness and her if other people are going to be jerks and I'm not going to care about them type attitude, I really identified with that. Also, as I said, it was an audiobook, and sometimes audiobooks are hard for me to get into, especially when they have a thick accent, which this one did. But it's an accent that I'm very much used to, not from real life, but I've seen it on TV a lot, and I understood her so well I could speed it up to 2 times and still know what she was saying. So I really liked the narrator for this one. She also did different voices for everybody, and it felt really immersive that way. And it wasn't my usual thing, but I liked it. So take that as you will, whether you want to read it or not. So thank you to BookTube for recommending that to me, because I don't think I would have tried it if y'all hadn't said it was good. All the rest of the things I have to talk about are also BookTube books, but that's been happening a lot lately, and it's worked out pretty well for me. So thank you guys. This is Soulless by Gail Carriger. This was recommended by The Hungry Bookworm, Julie from The Hungry Bookworm, and she said very little about it, but she just started a read-along about it, and it mentioned that there was tea and parasols, and I think that this was steampunk, and so I was like, I really want to read more steampunk. I'm really into it, but not very many other people are, so it's hard to get recs, and I'm always nervous about trying new books that haven't been recommended, that are outside of my usual genres, because what if I pick the wrong one, and then it messes up my idea of the genre, bleh. So I haven't read very much steampunk, but I really like to. So I jumped on this read-along, didn't read it during the read-along, because I had a bunch of other things that I was getting behind on during December, but I finally read it, and I read it in 2 days, I think, because I really, really liked it. Something that I don't think she said when she was introducing the read-along is that it's paranormal romance, which if you read the back or the description anywhere, you will see that it is paranormal romance, but I didn't do that. I was just like, yeah, she said I should read this, I'm gonna read it, and then, oh, look, it's paranormal romance, huh, I don't read paranormal romance. My mom reads a lot of paranormal romance, and because of some of the things she said about it, and because of the general stigma against it in a lot of book communities, I'm a little put off. I'm aware that there are a lot of toxic tropes involved, with a lot of the male being super strong and blah blah blah, and alphas, but in this book, I didn't find any of the nasty tropes. The main hero guy, love interest, is an alpha of his pack. He's the leader of his pack because there are werewolf packs. There are also vampires and ghosts, and what our main character is, which is a preternatural, and that means that she can make people unsupernatural while she touches them. So if she touches a vampire, puts her hand on them, their fangs will retract and they won't be able to bite her and suck out her blood. And they also won't be super strong as long as she's touching them, stuff like that. And I don't think their healing abilities will work when she's touching them. Same with werewolves. If they're in wolf form and she touches them, they'll turn him back into a human. Which is a really cool concept that I don't know if I've heard of before, but that might just be because I don't read paranormal romance. Anyway, the hero of this book is called an alpha, but he doesn't act like an alpha. Like, he's bossy, but in the way that I'm bossy, where I tell people what to do a lot and I'm stubborn, but I don't get off on telling people what to do, and I don't flip out and attack people and be violent if I don't get my way, and he doesn't either. He's quite gentle with our main character, and despite trying to boss her around, she bosses back and she doesn't take that. And one of the biggest bad things about the whole alpha thing is the sometimes lack of consent in the romantic relationships, and that really doesn't come up in this because it's kind of because the author has made it so that in this particular werewolf culture, the male actually has to let the female wolf, or non-wolf in this case, pick him. And so because she's added that, it takes away the whole I'm gonna kiss you whether you like it or not thing, because I'm a leader and I'm an alpha and being pushy is attractive. It totally gets rid of that whole thing. So on that level, I really like this. Generally find pretty much all the characters really likable. There was one character who was kind of underdeveloped in my opinion, but I'm reading the sequel now and it sounds like she's about to be developed quite a bit. That's the female best friend of the main character. She's mostly a sounding board that Alexia is the main character that she bounces off talking about things with. Sometimes she's talking about the hero, but she also talks about the other subplot of the book, which is a mystery about people going missing and people appearing and trying to figure out what's going on with that. Alexia also has sort of a gay best friend who is a vampire, and he has kind of a harem of gay men around him who work for him, because all vampires and all werewolves have humans that work for them, and then if they work for them well, the vampire werewolf might turn them and then they get eternal life and such. His name is Lord Akeldama, and he's very effeminate and interesting and fun, and I really enjoy the hero's main best friend, who's like an older advisor type. He's pretty cool, as well as Alexia's butler. I love him. So a lot of really cool characters, really interesting world building. Most of the world building actually revolves around the integration of werewolves, vampires, preternaturals, and ghosts into regular society, because they have come out of the dark and are like people are publicly aware of them, and they have a place in society. So most of the world building has gone into changing around Victorian era so that it can fit these supernatural creatures into it, whereas there's very little world building to do with the whole steampunk thing. There are a few mentions of steampunk technology, but not very much. I'm hoping that there will be more in the next few books, because as I said, one of the reasons I wanted to read this was to get more steampunk novels under my belt. So hopefully there will be a little bit more of that in future books. Also, the thing on the front of this that recommends it is that it is wickedly funny, and I think that's definitely a focus of this book. It is very lighthearted, and the narrator is always being funny and making jokes about everything, doesn't take anything seriously basically, and I really enjoyed it just for its lightheartedness on top of everything else. The next two came from the same recommendation video, The Night Diary by Veera Hiranandani and Midsummer's Mayhem by Rajani LaRocca. These were both in Kendra Winchester's video about East and South Asian, or Middle Eastern and South Asian own voices authors and stuff like that. Same place I got the recs for Arusha and the End of Time, and that other one that I really liked, Furthermore. I just requested a bunch of books from that video because, like the Wild Book Garden's recommendations for Beauty and the Beast retellings, a lot of them sounded really good. So the first one I read was Midsummer's Mayhem. It is about this Indian American girl who is biracial, Indian and white. She is super into baking. Her mom is super into cooking, and her dad is a food reviewer. He reviews restaurants in a local paper, and so she likes to bake things for him, and then he figures out what flavors she's put in and makes suggestions. And the weird thing going on in this book is that some Midsummer Night's Eve, or Midsummer, whatever the name of that play by Shakespeare is, that's all about fairies, specifically Queen Titania and King Oberon, and how they like to mess with humans. That kind of starts happening in her local town, and with members of her family start acting like people from that play, and weird magical things start happening, and people act like they're under spells. And this is Mimi, and she has to figure out what's going on, especially because one of the people who's acting weird is her dad, and he is not showing any interest in cooking with her anymore or tasting any of the things that she does, except he likes to eat everything, but he doesn't like tell her what's in it or give her suggestions or anything. He's a crazy eating machine. And there's this weird new pastry shop in town where they can't cook, and they don't know how to make pastries, and there's this competition for making pastries at this place that can't make them, and Mimi wants to enter and win because she thinks she's really good, and she wants to let other people know that, and she wants to show she's good at something because she feels like she's not as talented as her brother and sisters are, because one of them's a sports star, one of them's a great dancer, one of them's good at acting. And so it's all about her figuring out all of these different things. And in the meantime, we get to see her baking, and there's quite a lot of details put into the baking, which I appreciate. As a person who bakes myself, I understood what they were talking about, and I really like when people add in real pertinent details, like how, like, talking about the right ingredients going into making some puffs, and how you have to let things cool, and weird things like that. And she talks about her different flavor combinations, because she likes to try really weird ones, like sweet with savory. We took a little break there because someone in my family decided to start the washer, and the pump went off for an extended period. Anyway, Midsummer's Mayhem was really enjoyable, really weird. As I said, I don't like that particular play of Shakespeare's. It's my least liked one. I don't really like the others, but that one's the one that I like the least. No offense to anyone who does like it, but I really enjoyed the whole baking aspect, and especially with this main character liking to experiment with flavors and using a lot of plants in her cooking, like this is lavender and some other stuff, and she puts all that into her baked goods to make different flavors. Not sure if that actually works, but I haven't tried it, and it sounds good. I generally had a lot of fun and really enjoyed both the magical and the non-magical elements. Then we have this one, which put me in a bit of a reading slump because I wanted to finish it, and I had a hard time finishing it, not because I didn't like it, but because it touched me really deeply and made me sad. This is a story of a young girl, 11 or so, I think, and it's about when India and Pakistan split it into two countries, because they used to all be India, and they split because there had been tensions between the Hindus and the Muslims especially, and so they were going to make a country for the Muslims to go to and one for the Hindus to go to, with Pakistan being for Muslims and India being for Hindus. It went pretty badly. It seemed to spark a lot more violence, particularly while people were en route going from Muslims going from India and Hindus leaving from Pakistan. While they were en route, there was a lot of violence. I don't understand why. Nobody really does. That's kind of what this book is about, and specifically it was from the perspective of this young girl who is from a mixed family. Her mother was Muslim and her father is Hindi, but they have been living in what has now become Pakistan, but they have to go to India because their mother, who was Muslim, is dead, and so for all anyone knows, everyone living in the family is Hindi, kind of, except that most of them aren't actually practicing Hindi. The grandmother of the family is, who's the mother of the father, and thus Hindi. And there is a Muslim who works for the family and who's basically a part of the family, who works as their cook, and he is practicing, but the girl main character and her brother and her father aren't particularly practicing anything, and that seems to be the case with a lot of the people who still identify with these religions, but more as a cultural thing and less as actually a religious thing. And overall, it really reminded me a lot of the whole Protestant Catholic killing each other in Europe around the time of the Reformation thing, where it's not actually about God or beliefs about God, it's all about people wanting to kill people because they're different. And yeah, it was quite emotionally harrowing. It was also really interesting and informative, because I knew hardly anything about this division before I read this. Personally, I find that it gives a little too much credit when it's analyzing the situation through the eyes of this little girl to people doing it, people being influenced by outside factors and people not being responsible for their own personal choices. But then it's hard to reconcile that many people making the individual choice to be violent towards others. But anyway, I really liked it. I really liked the ending. It really brought it back from a very depressing place, and I really recommend you read it. So that's what I read during the first bit of January. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be seeing you in the next video. Bye!